I never really thought that my own family would turn their backs on me. My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how I became the discarded son. Looking back, it still stings. I can't help but remember the moment that started it all, a moment so vivid in my mind, it feels like it just happened yesterday. It was my senior year in college. For years, I'd hidden my passion for art from my family. I knew how they judged those who pursued creative fields, believing only in the stability of traditional careers. But I had finally mustered enough courage to share my dream of becoming an artist. I remember standing in the living room, my heart racing and palms sweating, as I revealed my aspiration to my parents and my two older brothers. "Mom, Dad, I want to be an artist," I said, my voice trembling. The room seemed to freeze. My father's face turned a shade of red, the kind that erupts with anger. "You're wasting your time, Ethan. You could be a doctor, a lawyer." He shot down my dream before it even had a chance to breathe. "And you know what she said to me?" I exclaimed, my mother close beside him, shaking her head in disapproval. "You're nothing without us. You'll never make it on your own." That sentence echoed in my head like a haunting melody. They were right. At least that's what I believed at the time. The rejection hurt deeper than any physical blow. I felt crushed, abandoned. I had never felt more alone in my life. My so-called support system had just crumbled around me, and in that moment I made a decision. I would prove them wrong. I wasn't just going to survive, I was going to soar, and I would do it without them. After that day, I became estranged from my family. They had given up on me, and I was determined to rise from that rejection. The feeling of despair hung around me like a shadow. I took on every odd job I could find. I was working two, sometimes three jobs at once, just to pay my bills. I put my art dreams on hold, trapping myself in a world of stress and hustle. But in that chaos, I found resilience. Slowly, I started piecing my broken heart back together. I found strength in my best friend Jake, who became the wind beneath my wings. He'd often say, "Ethan, you can't let their rejection define you. You're better than this. You need to show them who you really are." His words were a lifeline. They inspired me to start planning my comeback. Each night, exhausted from work, I would sketch my ideas furiously, dreaming of the day I would finally show my family what I was capable of. The thought of their faces when they'd see my success drove me forward, fueling my ambition. As I climbed the corporate ladder in my high-stress job, I felt my confidence rebuilding. Each promotion and every pat on the back from my colleagues felt like a step toward freedom. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to do more than just climb the ranks. I wanted to give back to those in need, to make a difference. So I started a charity organization focused on helping young creatives find their voices. My life began to shift. The contrast between my growing success and my family's seemingly stagnant lives started to become evident. I would hear from old acquaintances about how my family continued their lives without me, still living in their narrow-minded bubble. They still thought that following your passion was a risk not worth taking, a lesson I was determined to change. For years, I worked tirelessly, painting my own path while their shadows loomed large in the back of my mind. I resolved to make my mark in the world, with or without their approval. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Little did I know the day would come when my family would seek me out again, under the pretense of reconciliation. The invite landed in my mailbox unexpectedly. Like a heavy stone, it sank in my gut. My first instinct was rage, but something else pulled me closer. Maybe, just maybe, this could be my chance for closure. I took a deep breath, my heart racing at the thought of facing them again. Could I really go back? Could I see the faces of the people who once rejected me? With trembling hands, I made my decision, knowing full well that the path ahead would lead to something unexpected. As I walked through the door on the day of the gathering, I felt a tornado of emotions churn within me. I was prepared for confrontation. I was ready to face my past head-on. But deep down, I wondered, would my family truly regret their choice? Would they see the man I had become, or would they only see the discarded son they once knew? The answer to that question would change everything. I walked into the family gathering, my heart pounding against my chest. The room was filled with my family, their laughter echoing off the walls like a distant, mocking song. For years I had lived without them, and now here I was, an uninvited guest in the life I once knew. The invitation had come as a surprise, buried in piles of unread mail. It was my mother's handwriting, the delicate slant I had once admired back then. "We miss you. It's time to reunite." The words felt like a double-edged sword. Part of me wanted to scream at the injustice, while another part was curious. After all these years, was there really a chance for reconciliation? As I made my way toward the living room, I spotted faces I recognized but barely knew now, familiar strangers. There was my father, the man who had crushed my dreams with a single harsh statement. My brothers, who had stood by in silence as I was cast out, were engrossed in a game, laughter spilling from their lips without a care in the world. Just as I was about to turn on my heel and leave, Jake's encouragement echoed in my mind. "This is your chance, Ethan. Face them. Make them see you." I took a deep breath and squared my shoulders. "I will show them," I whispered under my breath as I stepped forward. The laughter faded as my family turned to look at me, their expressions shifting from surprise to tension. The air felt electric. Every eye that met mine was heavy with unspoken words, guilt, regret. I couldn't tell. I was not there to find out. Surrounded by the world that once rejected me, I was ready to confront the past. Yet I never anticipated how quickly the evening would spiral into chaos. "Ethan, you actually came." My mother's voice was tinged with surprise, but underneath lay a nervousness. Did she really think it would be that simple? Did they think a few kind words could undo all the hurt? I forced a smile, masking my turmoil. "I figured it was about time to see if you've changed your minds." My words hung in the air like a dare. My father cleared his throat, the once powerful figure now reduced to awkward glances and half-hearted smiles. "It's good to have you here." He attempted to sound casual, but his discomfort dripped off him like sweat. As the night progressed, each interaction felt like a landmine. I encountered my brother Mark, who once belittled my aspirations. "Still painting walls instead of canvases, huh?" he quipped, folding his arms. I could feel the anger boiling within me, but I refused to rise to the bait. "Funny how some still choose walls while others build bridges," I shot back. my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. The other guests watching us could feel the tension. I wasn't just there to relive old wounds. I was there to demonstrate growth, strength, even if it meant standing against my own blood. And then there was the moment I had dreaded. My mother, who had remained relatively quiet through the evening, finally spoke up. "You've done well for yourself, Ethan," she said, though the pride in her tone was hard to detect. "But you can't forget that we just wanted what was best for you." "What was best for me?" I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. "You mean what was best for you? You took away my dreams, and in return, you gave me nothing but heartache." The room fell silent, each person present absorbing my words. I stared into their eyes, seeking any sign of the remorse I craved. Then an unexpected voice emerged from the crowd. It was my younger sister, who had always been caught in the crossfire. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she said, tears pooling in her eyes. "I should have stood up for you." It sparked something within me. Perhaps they were beginning to see the truth. Perhaps this was the moment where everything would shift. Then it happened. As if fate had a wicked sense of humor, a loud crash erupted from the kitchen. My cousin had knocked over a tray of drinks, the glass shattering like old memories breaking apart. Amid the chaos, another wave of unease swept across the room as my cousin's eyes widened with panic. "The basement is flooding." I saw the tension shift from internal conflicts to a very real external crisis. For a moment, I wanted to revel in their discomfort, that familiar thrill of revenge tickling my thoughts. But in a split second, I recognized something, a twisted opportunity. They needed my help. "Call the plumber," I commanded, and instinctively took charge, my years of hard work in the corporate world surfacing as I organized everyone. "We can't wait. We need to shut off the main valve now." It felt strange being the one to lead, the one they looked to for direction, all while I knew they had dismissed me previously. For once, my family seemed to put aside their egos, and we sprang into action together. The contrast between their previous attitudes and their newfound desperation was jarring. In the midst of the frantic energy, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Maybe this was my chance, I thought, my chance to be the man they refused to acknowledge, not out of revenge but out of necessity. If they were to see my worth, it would have to be through collaboration, working side by side with the very people who had once turned their backs on me. As the water subsided and our spirits lifted, emotional exchanges became inevitable. Amongst the debris, we paused for a moment, drenched and exhausted, but united. "Thank you for stepping in so quickly, Ethan," my father finally said, his voice imbued with a sincerity I had nearly forgotten existed. "You truly saved us." Standing in the middle of the chaos, I didn't just feel like the discarded son anymore. I felt like family once more, a part of something bigger than all our past grievances. Transformation was beautiful. But this wasn't enough yet. "It's a start," I thought. "But first, we must face the past before moving into the future." There was much to discuss, so much pain to unpack. I realized then that this may have been the turning point not just for them, but for me too. It was time to redefine our relationships based on truth and trust, moving beyond the hurt that had silenced us all for too long. As we began addressing the mess around us, I couldn't shake off the lingering question. Did they truly regret it all? And if so, how would I let them earn my forgiveness? The evening was just beginning, and I was prepared to reclaim my story, no longer as the discarded son, but as a member of this flawed but hopeful family. As the frantic energy from the flooded basement settled, I was left standing amidst my family, their expressions shifting from panic to realization. My heart raced as I absorbed their gratefulness, the initial plans of revenge being cast aside for the pressing matter at hand. In that moment, I understood that life, in all its unpredictability, had brought us here, and we were now at a crossroads. They had disowned me once, turning their backs when I needed support the most. And yet there I was, ready to step in and provide them with the help they so desperately needed. My newfound confidence surged through me, but so did the memories of past rejections. I had thrived without their support, yet now I was heartily reminded of their faults and how their dismissal had echoed in my life for years. "Thank you, Ethan," my mother murmured, her eyes brimming with tears. I didn't think you'd come through for us." A part of me relished her surprise, her disbelief. But as I glanced around at the solemn faces of my family, I knew I had to make a decision. "I did what anyone should do," I replied, my tone steady but laced with a hint of challenge. "But let's not forget the words that brought us to this moment. If you want a relationship moving forward, there are things that need to be said, past wounds that must be addressed." I watched as my words hung in the air, and awkwardness settled around us like an unseen weight. They were at a loss, unsure whether to accept my terms or continue feigning acceptance. The roles had shifted, and I found myself standing strong in the face of the very family that had dismissed me all those years ago. A minute passed, then another, as the tension hung heavily, and they exchanged perplexed glances. I could see my father weighing his words carefully, perhaps realizing he had misstepped far more than he had ever acknowledged. Finally, Mark broke the silence. "Okay, I'll bite. Let's hear it, Ethan. Just tell us what you need us to understand." His words were blunt but felt genuine. I took a deep breath and continued. "I need you to understand that I poured years of my life into chasing my dreams. I worked hard to become who I am today. You never saw me as worthy, but I had to prove that worth to myself." A wave of discomfort passed over the room, and yet there was something exhilarating in standing my ground. Acknowledgement was a powerful currency, and I felt its weight shift in my favor. "It starts with you recognizing that you hurt me," I added, "but it also means you're willing to change. My help doesn't come freely. It requires that you accept your past mistakes. If you want to rebuild, you need to confront them." For the first time, I could see genuine remorse washing over my family, beginning with my mother, whose trembling hands betrayed her emotional state. "You're right, Ethan. We did hurt you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The room stood still. It was a moment stitched together by the threads of honesty. The walls surrounding my heart began to crack as I focused on their humility. But just as I felt a glimmer of hope surfacing, my mind wandered to what came next. Could I truly forgive them? Should I let them back into my life, knowing how easily it could slip again into the abyss of rejection? As I pondered these thoughts, clarity arrived. I had risen from the ashes. I had accomplished so much. The reputation I had built in my career and with my charity validated my worth not just to them, but to myself. This was more than just a reconciliation. It was the chance to elevate not only my life but theirs as well. However, I resolved to move forward carefully. I would extend my hand, yet I wouldn't neglect the need to maintain boundaries. I'll help, but I need you all to be involved. There are ways I can assist, but it starts with you working on trust, I said, each word carefully chosen. My father nodded slowly. We understand, son. We'll do whatever it takes. We want to be better together. And so, we began this reluctant journey toward healing, with each of us reflecting on our actions and decisions. Every small step toward acceptance became monumental. We shared stories over dinner. Moments that had once separated us were now weaving a complex tapestry of connection. I saw my mother engaging with vigor as she shared our childhood memories, a time when laughter was plentiful and love bound us, before the rifts emerged. It was a refreshing shift, one where vulnerability was met with acknowledgement instead of defensiveness. Over the weeks that followed, our family transformed under the pressure of introspection. We became an elastic band, one stretched taut and eventually easing back into shape. It was challenging. It required the utmost commitment. Sure, there were difficult conversations and tempers flared occasionally, but the journey bore fruit. Higher tensions led to more honest exchanges, often revealing how misguided their true intention had been all along. The layers of damage were slowly peeled back, each revealing an epiphany about our relationships. The more we acknowledged our past mistakes, the more I saw their willingness to change. What started as a chance for revenge morphed into an opportunity for redemption, one where I wasn't the only one learning from our history. As I stepped back and evaluated this growth, I realized that healing wasn't confined to simply forgiving them. It was recognizing that we were all imperfect people whose lives were entangled in ways we never quite understood. I hadn't simply healed my relationship with them. I was discovering who they truly were, once again, a family forged not just from blood, but from shared experiences and the desire to overcome. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I needed closure. I had evolved. They had evolved. And with each new day, I found pride in standing behind not just the discarded son, but the restored familial bond that had once felt irrevocably severed. Looking back, I knew the journey was only just beginning. As I pondered the essential message of our story, I embraced the realization that relationships could be rebuilt on mutual respect, understanding, and most of all, love. It boiled down to the simplest of truths. Forgiveness is the courage to let go, and sometimes it's the chance to start anew.